the Chevrolet Corvair, the American Beetle. Unsafe at any speed or excellent classic car? Let's find out. This is the first version through 1964. This is the last year of the first version, and in my eyes, the most pure and classic looking Corvair. It's 60s Americana through and through. Lots of chrome and great bright colors too. The classic styling details are everywhere, and they look great. The styling is not over the top like in the 50s. 60s styling is more subdued, laid back, and classy. Plenty of chrome, yes, but nothing over the top. And the interior is really cool and really worlds apart from anything we see today. No soft materials for safety's sake, but the seats feel like lounge chairs compared to today's snug and firm seats. The color combination is really nice. You've got the light vinyl seats with blue trim, and of course a matching blue dash. The chrome accents really help to set it off as well. Check out the steering wheel. No controls for your audio, and certainly no airbags. It's so Mad Men. You've got a lighter front and center. Speedometer, no tachometer. Fuel gauge, lights, wipers, and of course the ignition and the Turbo Glide transmission. Drive, reverse, and low. That's it. And of course, the heater. Of course, you've got an ashtray, the original AM stereo, FM was an option, and the speaker. Very cool. This, of course, the Monza edition. You got vents that you can open up with these. And so, really for what it is, it had a lot of utility. On the floor is where you control your high beams. Since there's no park setting, here's your parking brake. You got to put it in neutral and use that. Make sure when you're parked, especially if you're parked on a hill. And this is where you raise and lower the power top. Of course, you got to work hard to roll up and down the windows. Wind them up yourself. No power adjustment for the side view mirrors. You've got to do it by hand. Out back, you get bench seating for up to 3 across, but you'll slide around a bit without seat belts. The obligatory speaker and Mad Men ashtray are all there in the back, but you'll have to roll your window down and up the old-fashioned way. Note the cool tonneau cover to finish off the top-down look. Icing on the cake for the Corvair's interior. It's the right mix of 60s styling, chrome accents, and really nice color combinations that make cars like this Chevy so desirable. The gas filler is in the front, of course, and so is the trunk. And if you want to pop it open, well, you'll need a key. Plenty of room in the trunk here, windshield washer fluid, brake reservoir. And look, it really looks just like the day it came out of the factory. Great condition here. And also, the last owner, looks like everything is in there. He's got his gloves, of course, a spare fan belt, and a seat for sitting out at classic car shows, plus an attachable umbrella. You really took great care of this car, and it shows. It's good to have your own toolkit just in case when you're driving a classic car. But this Corvair has been quite reliable once I did the generator to alternator upgrade. And speaking of the generator to alternator conversion, I got the parts for it at the Corvair Ranch in Pennsylvania. They came with thorough instructions taped to each and every wire, plus the mounting bracket which is needed to pull it all off. The boxer engine only produces 95 horsepower, but I think it feels right in this Monza version. There was a turbo version available, and on top of that, plenty of people enjoy getting a lot of speed out of the Corvair, with parts that are readily available even 50 years later. You get a spare tire on the side, and there's also another spare belt here too, as they are known to fail prematurely. The important thing is that if you're buying an old car like this one, do your research online, and also have it checked out by someone who really knows the car that you're considering. Do that, and you'll have a great time owning it. I pretty much spent the whole weekend driving around in the Corvair, and everything that I would have normally done in my normal daily driver, I did in the Corvair. And it was really quite an experience. It was a total time warp. I really felt like I was back in the day driving my mom's classic 66 Dodge Dart convertible. There's a lot of similarities. In fact, the speedometer looks just like that of the 66 Dodge Dart convertible. It also looks pretty identical to the 1970 Cadillac convertible that my dad had, and my first car, 1970 Chevy Chevelle Malibu convertible. Not too exciting, just a 307 engine, but still a cool car, and pretty much the same speedometer, but really the feel of this car is exactly like the 66 Dodge Dart, because there's just so much play in the steering wheel. You're moving it and nothing's happening, and you know, you get the sense that the wind could blow you off the road. It's a light car, very light by today's standards, and all in all, it's just a vintage experience. Driving a classic car, especially a classic convertible, is just a visceral experience for all the senses. The sounds, the smells, you know, you smell gas inevitably, especially if you have the heat on, that sort of thing. It's just the way the cars were made, and there's a charm to it. It's absolutely an enjoyable experience and a time warp from 50 years ago. This car is 50 years old. Think about it. JFK had just been killed, Johnson was president, and wow, what a different time. And driving this car, you get that nostalgia. You know, the Beatles were new. They just come to America. And it was a different time, and it was probably a more idealistic time. And cars like this can bring that all back. Everybody that sees this car has something to say about it. They love it. And what's not to love? So this really is the American version of the Beetle. It's air-cooled, and it's rear-engine, rear-wheel drive. You got the trunk in the front, and I think it's great. To me, it makes a lot of sense. It's a simple car. When you look at it mechanically, it's just very easy to work on, and really quite reliable. There's not too much that can go wrong, and certainly not too much that you can't get to easily and fix. So the Corvair, unsafe at any speed. Well, I think Ralph Nader was really talking about the first ones in the early 60s. This is 1964, this Monza convertible example, and by that time, they had really taken care of all of those issues. They put in the strut that they needed to make sure that you don't get that lift-off hammer effect oversteer like you have in, you know, the Porsche 911, cars such as that. Now, I do have a classic Porsche 911. You can check out my review of that. But, you know, I just love these air-cooled cars. I think they're reliable. I think, you know, having no radiator and having to worry about all that cooling, just let the air do it, natural. It's just a great idea that I think was great when it came to America. Ralph Nader, of course, disagreed, but you know, that was, I think, all due to money. I think when they released the Corvair and they figured out that they had to put an extra part in the suspension, they weren't planning on it, and it was out of budget, and you know, it was that whole corporate think of the time. There was certainly no accountability back then, and times have really changed. That's why cars are much safer now, and well, you still have problems though. But I think the whole unsafe at any speed thing is just really not true once you get to the later versions. And of course the second series too, starting in 1965. It had all been sorted by that time, and once it was sorted, well, what you had was a very, very reliable classic car, and it wasn't unsafe at any speed at that point. If you know what you're doing when you drive a rear-wheel drive, rear-engine car, well, like I said before, it's like a pendulum. Throw a hammer, and it swings and swings. And that's the problem. Americans were used to front-engined, rear-wheel drive and those handling characteristics. And basically, if you go into a turn in this and you get scared, just like in the Porsche 911, and you lift off or it happens to be wet, well, you're gonna spin. And that caused a lot of problems with American drivers. But, you know, I think that's more a societal thing in general. This is a car you want to drive on a beautiful spring day like this one, checking out the cherry blossoms all around you, and really just taking in the smells and the feel of the classic car. It's very comfortable. It's a cushy, soft ride, and it's just a joy. This is what cruising is all about. It's the one you want to take down to the local main street, cruise down the strip, It's a beach car. It's a coastal town car. But it's just as comfortable in the city. Nostalgia is really in these days, as I was joking about the Mad Men cigarette lighter right in front of you. But it really is a time when we're looking back and thinking of simpler times. Times when you had to actually call someone and leave a message with their mom or their family member and hope they called you back. Times when you were actually wired to your phone, and this technology that rules our lives now is just not there. The Corvair is not a car that's controlled by computers. It's controlled by you. I recently drove a 1964 Jaguar E-Type Superlight, a really special car, and it's from this same year, 1964, and the differences are staggering. You know, this is not a sports car. That one is. But still, there's that connected feeling you get to the car. Whether you're in a GT race car, Le Mans car from the 60s, or you're just in this American classic cruiser. There's something about the mechanical quality of everything. There's something about the fact that you control everything and it doesn't control you. It's just a totally different driving sensation, and I really love it. I think Corvairs are really, really undervalued. You could pay really just a couple $1,000s for a real beater, especially a coupe. When you get into the convertibles, you're talking about more money, but really it's rare for a Corvair to sell for, you know, more than $15,000, certainly $20,000, totally top end. And I think they're definitely undervalued. When you see what some of these other classic cars go for, I think the Corvair has a lot of value to it. It's got a very interesting history, and it's a controversial car, and to me, controversy is a good thing. I think they're undervalued. Because you can certainly get a good example of a Corvair, even a Corvair convertible, in the $5,000 to $12,000 range. And that's very fair money for such a great nostalgic feeling. Now this is my own personal Corvair. I just got it and I could not be more thrilled. As I said before, it's just a time machine. It really takes you back. And what do you want from a classic car? You know, you want reliability, you want a fun to drive car. This one certainly is. It's not a speed demon, but it's got that classic feel, that classic handling, and it just brings you back to a more simple age. So I think the Corvair, especially in convertible form, is definitely an excellent classic car to own, and I don't think it's unsafe at any speed. Of course, driving it these days without shoulder belts and really no seat belts in the back, well, of course, it is dangerous. You conjure up images of Andy Warhol's car crash scenes and that sort of thing. You really have to be careful when you're driving a car like this. You have to give yourself a huge space cushion, and you really have to watch out because the braking is just not what it was as compared to cars of today. So you don't want to drive aggressively in a classic car like this. You want to just take it easy. You want to just put the top down and cruise, just like I'm doing right now. It's what this was made for. I'm so happy I got this Corvair. It really does feel like my mom's 66 Dodge Dart convertible with the Slant 6 engine, a different type of 6-cylinder, but still the same sounds, the same feeling, the same sort of performance, and it is just an incredible joy to drive and to own. I'm Drivin' Ivan Katz.